Charlie Adelson's murder for hire trial. The murder of Dan Markel has gotten absolutely crazy. Witnesses are becoming incredibly forgetful all of a sudden. What happened? Going to talk about that, so much more on today's episode. Stay tuned.
You are listening to the Roberta Glass True Crime Report, putting the true back in true crime. From New York City, Roberta Glass is now on the record.
So I've always thought that the murder of Dan Markel was a unique true crime story in that it has taken so many years to unfold, and we've watched defendant after defendant after defendant get convicted, and it looks like it will not stop anytime soon. So before I get ahead of myself, let me tell you what happened. Let me tell you the story. In the late morning hours of July 14th, 2014, esteemed Florida State University law professor Dan Markel was murdered in the driveway of his home. He had just pulled in to the driveway. He was talking to his friend on the cell phone, and his neighbor heard 2 shots ring out, and he went over to investigate. He found his neighbor, Dan Markel, shot twice. He was rushed to the hospital where he succumbed to his wounds. But who would want to kill Dan Markel? He was a beloved law professor, blogger, and by most accounts, an all-around nice guy. The answer to that question is revealed in emails from Dan's former mother-in-law, Donna Adelson, to her daughter, Wendy Adelson. In lengthy emails, Donna outlines a plan to get Wendy and Dan's 2 children, and most importantly, Wendy, to move to Miami, where Donna and her dentist husband, Harvey, live. A court had barred Wendy from relocating from Tallahassee, a town that she hated. This was known as Wendy's problem. And how to solve Wendy's problem? The answer was her brother, dentist Charlie Adelson, and who hired 2 hitmen through his girlfriend, Catherine Magbanua. So here's Charlie Adelson. So just to show you the cast of characters, this is Charlie Adelson. This is his sister, Wendy Adelson. That is Dan Markel on the right. And here's the Adelson family. So we have Wendy on the bottom right, Charlie on the bottom left, Harvey on the top right, and Donna on top left, and Donna on the top right. The Markel family is Ruth, who I interviewed last year, Ruth Markel, about her book, The Unveiling. The link is in the description of this episode, with her husband, Phil, and her son, Dan. But here's Charlie Adelson's girlfriend, Catherine Magbanua, who was dating just the man on the right, Sigfredo Garcia, who was the head of, I believe, the Miami Latin Kings, and his friend, Luis Rivera, on the left. And they rented a Prius and drove it from Miami to Tallahassee, pulled in behind Dan Markel, murdered him, and drove away. But how were they going to connect it to the Adelsons? That was the question. And it took years and years and years and years, because so Luis Rivera was the first one to come forward when the evidence piled up. They had them on camera in the Prius. And he agreed to cooperate and tell everything. So there was the trial of Sigfredo Garcia first, then Catherine Magbanua, which was ended in a hung jury. Then she was retried. Then COVID came, so then it had to be delayed. And she was sentenced to life. And now she's agreeing to cooperate. And right before her trial, Charlie Adelson was arrested and indicted as the mastermind. So that was the first time we had seen it connected to the Adelson family. But what makes this case so interesting is that there's so much evidence that the entire family, besides the oldest brother, the Adelsons, were all involved. Now, according to Jeffrey Lacasse, who was dating Wendy, who had just broken up, she had just broken up with him right before the murder, the whole family had gotten to the point where it was like the family's pastime to hate on Dan Markel. And it seemed like the rich people were going to get away with it for a long time, and just the players who did it, from Catherine Magbanua all the way down, Magbun, I always have such a hard time pronouncing her name, all the way down. And now we're at Charlie Adelson's family, and we have Wendy testifying clearly. She knew. She was seen driving by the crime scene a couple blocks away, where it was cut off by a police officer right around the time of the murder. And many people feel she was there because she was checking out to see if it was done. She said she looked, she saw the road was blocked off, and she just didn't think anything of it. But there was a bump in this case. So what a bump is when you don't have enough information and you get an FBI informant or some kind of informant to come into the case and bump it forward. So they had an undercover cop hand Donna, the mother, a note saying, my friend helped you out, and he needs, basically blackmailing them, saying, we're going to come forward if we know about what was done for you in Tallahassee, if you don't, and then listen to the recordings and listen to them talk. And one of the main pieces of evidence against Charlie Adelson are these undercover surveillance tapes between Charlie and his girlfriend, Katie. So what happened today in trial? So you have very good prosecutor, Georgia Kappelman, against a extremely competent defense attorney, I would assume very expensive defense attorney, for this well-to-do dentist. He hasn't lost his medical license yet. But his girlfriend came into court today, and this was a kind of testimony I have never seen before. And for all those of you who just tuned in to hear me talk about JF, I will get back to that, but I will get back to that very soon, that subject very soon. Apparently, JF has said that he can now see himself getting wrongfully convicted. He's very interested in wrongful conviction, what I'd call innocence fraud documentaries, the unsolved murder of Beverly Lynn Smith. He's watching it. And he's, according to one commenter, said that he's prepared to get wrongfully convicted and do his time in Canada, and he won't do more than 2 years. So, but this trial today, I have never seen anything like it before. The girlfriend of Charlie Adelson comes in, and she can't remember anything, even despite being sent an email by Georgia Kappelman, the prosecutor, with her whole testimony to her, the whole interrogation. She's just forgotten it all. And her memory significantly improves when it's time for the defense's cross. And then as she's walking out the courtroom, she's like chatting, flirting with Charlie Adelson, and says on the stand that she's still in love with him or was in love with him. It's wild. I thought we could watch a little of it. And then I want to go into what I think is the most fascinating thing about this case, which is Wendy Adelson's ex-boyfriend, Jeffrey Lacasse, put the entire thing together out of intuition, little pieces of things that he heard from Wendy. He figures out the entire things and lays the whole case out for the cops, which I've also never seen anything like. I think this is one of the most fascinating cases. I understand why people are obsessed with it. So here's Charlie's girlfriend, June, and Katie, for her part in setting this whole thing up, got a breast augmentation, but Charlie only paid for half of it. So someone said today in the chat, he just paid for one breast. Which cracked me up, but here's her. I thought we'd watch a little bit of her testimony. So get some snacks, get a drink, get ready for a very slower paced, as trials always are, stream. Strangely, she's wearing an outfit very much like Wendy Adelson's outfit, with that kind of pull tie on the one shoulder, all black. Just
everyone but the witness may be seated. Please raise your right hand, ma'am. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
I do.
You may take your seat.
And for those of you watching on YouTube, you're about to be blinded by her white teeth. I was just wondering if Charlie had done them. He's an implant specialist. And now the entire dental practice run by his father has folded. And apparently they're social pariahs. They can't enroll their grandchildren in the schools that they want, which must be terrible for them because they're so snobby.
Name and spell your name.
Hi, I'm June. I'm Chinda. It's June, first name, last name Umchinda.
You don't have to, I don't think you're going to have to lean that close to the
Oh,
microphone.
okay.
We can let you know if we can't hear you.
All right, like that.
Where do you live, ma'am?
I'm in South Florida.
Do you know Charlie Adelson?
Oh, gosh, I'm sorry. It was my alarm to come down here.
Look at that face. He's flirting with her on the stand. What happened between these two? Has he been writing her letters in jail? Has she been visiting him in jail, waiting this trial? He did not get bail.
Is it silence now?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
Wait, let me just check if it's. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
I don't want it to snooze. Okay.
It's okay.
Charlie's favorite thing he told Jeffrey Lacasse was to go to Thailand and sleep with underage prostitutes. He's a real stellar guy.
Do you know Charlie Adelson?
I do.
How do you know him?
He's my ex-boyfriend.
Do you see him here in the courtroom?
I do.
Could you please point him out and describe what he's wearing?
He's the middle one there with the.
Look at that stare. I mean, he's just trying to communicate, like, be easy on me. I still love you, baby. This is wild. Keith Raniere tried to do this in his trial with different witnesses. Mark Vicente talks about it, how he looked at him with like his fake look of love. And he got pulled in for a second and then he sort of got back to reality.
The navy blue suit on.
The record reflects the witness has identified the defendant.
The record will reflect.
When did you date Mr. Adelson?
We initially met in I think it was like February or so, and then
February of what year?
2015.
Okay.
And we didn't speak for about 8 months. We just had like a brief meeting, and then in October we officially started dating.
October of 2015.
Yes,
And how long did you date him?
for roughly 2.5 years,
Does,
like officially.
okay. Does June of 2017 sound like the correct end of your relationship?
Officially, yes,
All right. And did you continue to talk to Mr. Adelson after the breakup?
we did.
When was the last time you spoke to Mr. Adelson?
A day or so before his arrest,
Okay.
we were playing phone tag, and I was supposed to see him. We didn't see each other for a long time, but I was supposed to see him. I didn't get to, and then I wrote him back. I saw a message from him, and then the next day he was taken away.
All right. So when that's obviously significantly after the official breakup.
He was taken away. He was ripped from me. What a lovesick puppy. I've never seen testimony like this. Ever. It's so crazy. Wait till she gets into. So Georgia Kappelman is expecting from her interview, her to testify to the things that they talked about in the interview, but she's not going to remember any of it.
Oh,
What
right.
was-
This was in April of last 2022.
What was the nature of your relationship after the official breakup? Were you kind of on again, off again, or just casually seeing each other when you were both single, or what was the deal there?
I mean, it was a lot of years that went by after our official relationship. So there were like different periods of times where we were seeing each other and then casual, but we always stayed in touch throughout the years. So
All right. And do you still have feelings for Mr. Adelson as we sit here today?
so he's my last serious boyfriend. So I would say yes, that there's something still there. I care about him,
Mhm.
but obviously I haven't seen him in God knows how long. So
All right.
She hasn't seen him, and she says she hasn't seen him since he was taken away, and she's sure she's gotten no letters from him from prison, no phone calls from him from prison. I'm not so sure what's going on here. What did he tell her? To just say, I don't remember to everything? So that's what it seems like.
Right. And do you recall being interviewed by the Tallahassee Police Department in reference to this case on July 24th, 2018?
I do.
Okay. And back at that time, when you were interviewed, it had been about 2 weeks since you had talked to him. Does that ring a bell?
Something like that, yes.
Okay. And you had talked to him prior to that interview around your birthday. Is that right?
On the phone, yes.
And when is your birthday?
June 28th.
Okay. So is that was obviously prior to his arrest, but just a few months before the trial of Catherine Magbanua? Did you talk to him then as well?
I'm not I don't recall when her trial was. I know she had a retrial, so
Okay.
I don't know the date specifically.
Okay, but in one of those trials, didn't you testify that you had spoken to him just the night before that trial?
Right. I mean, we were still talking, so yes, I did speak.
Okay, so I'm just kind of trying to establish in reference to the important dates of this case, you seem to have had some communication with him pretty close in time to those important dates. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Charlie is also notoriously unfaithful and dates like
But you haven't had
3
any
women at a
contact
time.
with him in reference to what you're going to say here today?
No, not since he got arrested. I haven't heard from him.
Okay. Were you dating him when what we're calling the bump occurred back on?
Since he was arrested or since he was taken away? And then she looks all worried there and starts shaking her head and looking at Charlie. Is that the right answer? Is that the right answer? I don't know what you do as a prosecutor. Do you call her out? I would assume you would call her out. And Georgia tries to. You'll see a little bit
On April 19th of 2016?
later.
Yes.
And are you familiar with what we mean when we say the bump?
Is that the money extortion thing from?
The thing when Donna Adelson was approached
Yes.
by an undercover officer? Okay, so how far into your relationship with him were you at the time that occurred? And that's, again, April 19th of 2016.
About a year, roughly, I would say.
All right, but you began dating officially
Well, from October, so that's not a year. It's
Okay. More like 6 months.
yeah.
What was the status of your relationship, or can you kind of describe for us what your relationship was at that time, April of 2016?
Oh, sorry. I'm trying to think of the dates again. So the bump was 2016, you said, in April?
Yes, ma'am. So this would be about 6 months into your relationship. Were you seeing each other seriously? Were you seeing a lot of each other? Tell us about
Every
that.
day, yeah.
Every
So-
day. Okay. And have you previously described the relationship at that time as a fairy tale?
Back then, yes.
Okay. Perfect.
Yes.
Inseparable.
Yes.
Okay.
we
So
were.
the two
He's my psychopath soulmate.
of you were together quite a lot during that time frame.
Yeah, I
Yes.
basically lived there.
Okay. And so you spent most of the time that you were together over at his place?
Yes,
And is that the place on Whale Harbor?
it is.
Okay. And did the relationship change at some, well, before we leave that, when the bump occurred on April 19th, 2016, did Mr. Adelson, tell you about the bump?
No,
All right. So at some point, did the relationship change around this time frame, April of 2016?
I can't say exactly like when it changed because we've had a lot of ups and downs, but I mean, it did change. So I don't know when exactly it was.
Okay. I want to draw your attention specifically to the time frame between April and May of 2016. Are you able to tell the jury about some changes you observed in Mr. Adelson's behavior during that time frame?
I don't know like if it was in that time frame.
This kind of testimony where the defendant is in the room, where it's incredibly hard for the witness to testify with the defendant in the room. You see a lot in depositions where the defendant insists on coming for that purpose, to intimidate. So Charlie Rose, for example, came to his accuser's deposition because it's his right to be there, but one could infer from his presence that he was intending to try to intimidate the witness. And you can see she's clearly intimidated, and just seeing Charlie and he's giving her goo-goo eyes is changing her testimony. So I'm sure she told the police or the prosecutor back then that it was a fairy tale, but after the bump, things became really bad. But now she can't remember. Things were so up and down all the time. It was an up and down fairy tale. Romance. It was perfect, except for the times when it wasn't. So now the story's getting very muddled.
Exactly.
Okay. Do you recall giving a law enforcement interview in this case?
I do.
Okay. And that was done on July 24th of 2018.
Right.
Would your memory have been better back then on these issues as far as the dates that things
Does
happened?
it say what date? Like, they didn't ask me specifically when, how he was acting when. So I don't know exactly what they meant, like how he was acting, what time.
Okay.
Georgia Kappelman is funny. She's very transparent when she doesn't like an answer. Often she'll give a snarky remark that she'll have to strike from the record because the defense will object to it. But it's always out of frustration. And this must have been the most frustrating direct. She's her witness. She has sent her own testimony to review. She says in this testimony that, under oath, that she's reviewed it. But talk about D- student of her own words. It is unreal.
So you didn't tell them that he began to freak out around that time and act sneaky and go places without telling you where?
I said that. I just don't know at that specific time frame if that was referring to that. Like
Okay.
right now, I really have no idea right now.
Okay. At some point,
I really have no idea right now. I don't even know who I am in the presence of my prince, Charlie Adelson.
did a reporter approach you in Mr. Adelson's driveway?
They did.
All right. And was that the first that you learned about this murder?
Yes.
So Mr. Adelson had never even told you during your serious relationship with him that his brother-in-law had been murdered?
He mentioned that he'd been murdered, but there were no details. It was just, he said, we don't know who did it and this would happen. So.
Okay. So do you know when this reporter approached you?
Like what time or when?
Was it approximately around June 17th of 2016? Does that sound right?
It was right after, like, I think a political holiday because I had a Band-Aid on my arm from a burn that we went to at a barbecue, and it was embarrassing that they took a photo of me with it. So I remember that I still had that Band-Aid on my arm. So it might have been
Okay.
around May or something,
All right.
maybe Memorial Day.
Are we sure it was in 2016?
Well, there's a picture like the reporter has on the internet. So whenever that article came out, it would be then.
She's embarrassed by a Band-Aid on her arm? Really? That's what she finds embarrassing? Talk about perfectionistic with her looks. I guess that's when it's all you have that's kind of important to you.
I probably should show you an article and ask if this is the one you're referencing.
Yes. So there's a Band-Aid on my arm, as you can see.
All right. And what is the date of that article?
That says June 17th. So when is Memorial Day, May?
Yes. What is the year on the article?
2016.
Okay, so can we agree it was approximately in June of 2016 that you got approached?
I believe it was May, but I think they published the article in June. But yes, around June, May, June.
I thought the reporter had the article with them when they approached you. Is that not the case?
No, I mean the photo. Like he made that article and posted it, like
From
the
the interaction.
story. Yeah, from I guess our candid shot or whatever.
All right, so maybe you were approached in May and then the article came out in June.
I believe that's correct. Yeah.
Okay, and that was when that reporter approached you, that was when you found out that there was this.
More goo-goo eyes from Charlie Adelson. I cannot believe he was not admonished for this. That was the most amazing thing about the NXIVM trial. Judge Garifas did not miss anything. He actually threw out a reporter for giving a look, just a look. He was the most psychologically sensitive judge I've ever seen before. If you want to know more about that, go to Claire Bronfman's, I think it's called This Judge Isn't Blind. It's about Claire Bronfman sentencing, my episode on that. He called her out for something that I totally miss.
Whole backstory to this murder that may involve Charlie Adelson.
I actually didn't find out at that moment. They like ran up to me asking if I'm Catherine, and I had no idea who that was. So I didn't even know who they were.
How come you didn't know who Catherine Magdanoa was?
Not at all, no.
All right, so is that the first? Did you eventually find out who she was after you learned that name from the reporter?
Yes, eventually.
Who was she?
She was Charlie's ex-girlfriend, and she also worked for another friend of mine at the front desk.
And who's that?
Jerry Obed.
All right. And what was she working for Jerry Obed at the time that you learned about her, I guess? Learned of her existence?
No, so I guess I met her in the front of Jerry's place once briefly, and then when I heard of her, my mind went back to that day, but I had no idea like her name or anything back then.
All right, so you were confused in May of 2016 for her by a reporter, yes? Right. And then you learned, oh, she was an ex-girlfriend of Charlie Adelson, right?
Eventually, yeah.
Okay, and then subsequent to that, you realized, oh, that's the girl that used to work for Jerry Obed.
Yes.
Okay, I'm with you. All right, once you found out about this sort of backstory to this homicide and investigation, did the defendant, Mr. Adelson, tell you anything about how to handle the police if you were to be approached by the police?
He said if anyone came knocking on the door asking questions, I don't know anything. And at that time, I really didn't know anything still. So
he told you not to talk to the police?
Right, because I think he had to go away that weekend or week, and I was at the house by myself. So.
And had he been acting strangely for weeks before that article was published? And again, that article was published June 17th, 2016.
I believe so.
All right, tell us what acting strangely means.
I think I said it in my interview that he would kind of run off to places without really giving me an explanation. We kind of had a routine going. We would work, go to the gym, and then every night usually see each other at a certain time. But it was getting to the point where like he was running late or things were happening, and I didn't really know the reason. And also, I think I just felt like something was different in our relationship.
And did you notice that he had begun communicating with Catherine Magdanoa around that time?
around, sorry, the time, which
The
time
2
was it?
weeks prior to the publication of that article, which was published on June 17th, 2016.
2 weeks before that. I can't remember exactly when I found out about Catherine McVanua. Like, I know it was after May. So if it was in that 2-week period before the article came out, then
Did you say in your interview with law enforcement that in that time frame you saw him going back and forth with Katie on the calls, like, and I said, oh, why do you guys talk so much? And also you were commenting about the calls being at odd hours and how you know he's not normally up that early, and that's when you saw the call activity on his phone. Do you remember telling law enforcement that?
I remember saying I saw her name come up or something at some point in time. Again, I don't know if that is the same time, around that time. And also the odd hours thing, I was referring to another girl, I think. That.
See, now her story is shifting significantly. She looks like she's going to throw up on the stand. I don't know if this is just nerves, but it seems like nerves brought on by Charlie Adelson, and they keep Adelson, excuse me, they keep switching between two pronunciations. They keep cutting to him because he's making all these faces at her. And all of a sudden her story gets weaker and weaker. He sort of would run away. How do you sort of run away? How does that happen? So this was just bizarre witness tampering. I'll save you the rest of it because it gets so tedious. That Georgia Kappelman asked her, like, did you review this? And she's like, oh, yes, the thing you sent me by email, yeah. So what happened there? And he's got this really strong defense attorney, and the people in the comments are saying, oh, he's terrible, he's over the top, because they don't agree with him. That's a really tempting thing to do when you aren't on the defense side, is just to put down the defense. But he has a lot of bad facts, that defense attorney, to contend with. So there will be theatrics, and there will be courtroom tricks and that kind of stuff. But I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a hung jury on this, the way it's going now. Shocking, unbelievable, because he's caught on tape discussing it. It's called the Dolce Vita tapes. He was at the Dolce Vita restaurant with Catherine McVanua discussing it. And her trial is a really fun because she just says the word scenarios. So they're like, well, you're on tape talking about what to do with the cops, and Charlie Adelson is talking to you about how they can't put a finger on you, those kind of things. And she's like, well, he was just talking scenarios. She said the word scenarios no less than 5,000 times. That's an exaggeration, but a lot. And many people think that her defense team was paid for by Charlie Adelson. And now when she got life, she's agreed to a pro offer to reduce her time in agreement for telling everything she knows. It's just such a crazy trial because I've never seen so many people testify to things that seem so obviously untrue from the other testimony and the evidence, especially Wendy Adelson. She's changed her story. She's testified in 3 trials so far. And every time she changes her story. So last trial, when she was talking about Gibbers, which was the nickname Donna and Wendy had for Dan Markel, so demeaning. The judge asked her, I believe it was the judge asked her to spell Gibbers. And she's like, well, I don't know how to spell Gibbers. And this trial, she says, oh, I thought of the name myself. So which is it, Wendy? But the most amazing thing about this case, and something I've never seen before in any other case, is a interrogation by someone on the peripheries, Wendy's ex-boyfriend, who was really brought in to be the fall guy, to be the suspect. So Wendy knew he was traveling and would drive right by Dan Markel's house right around the time of the murder in a car that looked very much like a Prius. And she was very interested in this trip. And he put it all together for the police. He said, oh yeah, Charlie Adelson, he would do this. He would do this for his sister, Wendy. Called him a psychopath, called Wendy a psychopath. When we get back, we're going to take a listen to it. I'm just going to take a short break, rest my voice. When we get back, Jeffrey Lacasse, his interrogation. We're going to go through it. Stay tuned. If you are enjoying this episode of my True Crime Report, please hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and share this episode. Get access to exclusive podcasts and other bonus content by becoming a patron today. If you have a question or comment for me, shoot me a super chat and I'll do my best to answer it and read it on air. Thanks so much. Now back to the show. So the volume on this is not great. So if it's too terrible, I may cut it short, but let's see what we can get into. So it says, so this is late. So he's already had a couple interviews with the police, and those early interviews, he'd just broken up with Wendy. He said he was in love with her, that she had this kind of magnetism, that most guys would lay in front of a truck for her. I think he put it something like that, something close to that. So it says, on August 12th, 2014, Jeffrey Lacasse came to the police department after calling me and asking to meet with me. That's the police officer writing this. The day prior, he advised me he was going through old text messages and discovered the following. He and his ex-girlfriend, Wendy Adelson, were supposed to go to California July 11th through the 17th. He advised that they make reservations on April 30th, and Wendy later canceled the reservations on June 4th, 2014. He advised that he had heard from Wendy and other friends that Wendy's brother, Charlie, texted her last week and asked to go out and celebrate. He further stated that Wendy was at dinner with Charlie. She vomited at the table. He thought this all to be highly suspicious in lieu of the recent homicide. Lacasse further advised Wendy went to Guatemala March 13th to 15th. Okay, that's less important. Let's get into it. So delicious. It's such a delicious part of this story.
Okay. So what's up? Corey said, and we talked on the phone a little bit that you wanted to. And you can start at the very beginning, however you want to do it.
I got some notes. Do you mind that?
No, absolutely not.
I don't want to forget stuff, so I've been writing stuff down last few months. I probably might end up.
Today he testified, and it's so interesting to look. He's 10 years older, and he looks a lot different. And he testified that he had written 100 pages of notes, that he was a researcher. He's a social work professor. Sometimes people call him the Sherlock Holmes of this case because he's the one who put it all together. Wendy and Dan had another friend who also, female friend, sorry, not sure she is named publicly, but her testimony to the police is out there, and she put it together, but not in such an interesting way and not such a complete way as Jeffrey Lacasse. So 100 pages of notes, went through every text message, every receipt, and he whittled it down to 5 pages to bring to the police.
Well, here's the thing, and just to give you the broad overview quickly. I felt like when I first talked to Investigator Hale, I was shattered. I mean, you can imagine, you see violent crime all the time. So I think he saw a lot of noise, and a lot of the stuff I told him, but I don't know how it came across. The last couple of meetings we had, he seemed to think I was a disgruntled ex-boyfriend that got my heart broken, and that was why I was upset. And there was some truth to that. I was upset. But over time, got some clarity on some things.
So, of course, when Wendy was questioned, she said that she hoped it wasn't someone in her family, and she talked to her mother, and she sounded surprised, so she knows that her mother didn't set this up. But she's wearing this Al t-shirt, and then her friend suggests Jeffrey Lacasse, and she jumps on it. So many people, including myself, believe he was supposed to take the fall for this and take the heat off the family.
So I guess I'll just give you my overall impression. And just want to tell you things I saw with my own 2 eyes that were very suspicious to me that I didn't feel really hurt previously. Or maybe they were hurt and not seen as credible. I don't know. But just so you get the context for it, as far as the relationship stuff, that sucked. But you know, that last 3-4 months, I moved on with my life. You know, actually, her moving away was the best thing that ever happened to me in terms of my personal life. It was a bad relationship. So this isn't any animosity towards her for being an unfaithful girlfriend. This is more deeply concerning stuff about someone getting killed. So I started dating Wendy in fall of 2013. We had mutual friends, because a lot of my friends are in the Jewish community at the School of Social Work. So we both talked to a lot of the same people, you know, throughout the investigation. Your name came up a couple of times. And we just have a lot of like mutual friends and stuff. So that's how we met. So we dated casually in the fall. She just got divorced, so had I actually. And at the time, I mean, I came in here before, like, I thought Markel was a dick. I mean, that's what I had been taught by Wendy. Over time, I realized I was kind of misled. But in the fall, it was interesting. Let me start. Danny had been describing Wendy as a pathological liar and a mentally ill narcissistic sociopath in a semi-joking manner, but
To you?
to other people. I just heard that through the grapevine, because people said, be careful with Wendy. She's a little unbalanced. And I said, well, she seems upset about her divorce, but I don't know if she's unbalanced. I didn't take it seriously at the time. It sounds extreme, right? I thought these 2 people were having a nasty divorce. He's calling names. I thought it was totally out of line. It's one of the reasons I was upset with him, because you've seen the court documents. I mean, he got sick of her and really went after her legally in a really aggressive way, and not knowing the background. I thought it was inappropriate, you know. I thought it was taking things too far, trying to disbar your ex-wife, you know. But one impression I'm left with is, I don't think I said this before, like in December or January, I thought that was totally out of line. By May, I don't know if those are technically the correct words, but by May, I knew exactly what he was talking about. And this is a very troubled person, Wendy Adelson, deeply troubled person. And at first, she's gorgeous, she's smart, she's funny. I mean, I fell for this girl like a ton of bricks. Most men would. I mean, that was one reason I stuck around too long. But just an overall impression of her. And Danny says this in court documents, actually. Very manipulative person, pathological liar. Wendy was an alcoholic while I was with her. She drank her dinner most nights. Extremely fragile, extremely depressed. Many, many nights hated Tallahassee so much that thought we're a bunch of country bumpkins and we liked Tallahassee because she's from Miami. Didn't hide that fact. Thought it was bizarre that I moved here from Phoenix. And the 2 conversations that we had every single day for 9 months were, Danny is an evil monster. Tallahassee is the worst place in the world to live, and I can't believe I got stuck here because of Danny Markel. I mean, she was obsessed with those 2 concepts. So I got really tired of hearing that, but I heard that every.
So what the defense did today was say to Lacasse, you're mad because you thought Wendy was going to frame you for this murder, and you made up this story, and it took you so long to finally tells some things to the police. And he was like, look, I was afraid for my life. It took some time for me to figure it out. He was a great witness, the kind of witness you want, who will admit their faults, admit when things look bad for them, and stick to their guns and say, well, this is the truth. It may look bad for me, but this is the truth. This is the way it went down. Unratable on the stand.
Every day for 9 months. Wendy's very manipulative in that she plays the victim very, very easily. Whenever we got into a confrontation, she for me, very sensitive that I work with DP victims, when they've been raped and social work, all that kind of stuff. So I'm a sensitive Mr. Rogers kind of guy. So it's a very easy way to manipulate me.
And also, Wendy did a podcast about her marriage and divorce. And she said, well, Dan used to call me crazy because anyone who divorced him would have to be crazy. I mean, that's the kind of way she manipulated the narrative. Not that I'm the way Jeffrey Lacoste describes me as, I would say, over abusing alcohol, deeply troubled. And eventually he calls her an antisocial personality. But that is coupled with this perfect exterior. Every time she's testified, makeup perfect, hair pretty close to perfect, not a piece of lint on her outfit. So she has the dichotomy of this like perfect outside, high achiever. Not, of course, Dan Markel was Ivy League educated, top of his class, everything, extreme, high achiever. And he made Wendy look bad. And Jeffrey Lacoste puts the theory out there that maybe that was part of her resentment, is that Dan represented that she wasn't perfect.
I mean, or Markel, for that matter. But she just wasn't stable even in the fall, and able to cover it up here or there. One of these people, the first 100 hours you spend with her, you think she's amazing. 101 on, you're like, shit, what did I get myself into here? This person's kind of crazy.
You talk a little fast for me.
I'm sorry.
100 hours.
Yeah, first 100 hours you think she's amazing. Then after that, wait a second, there's some tremendous flaws here. So she puts up a very good public face. It's but as far as seeing stuff pertinent to the crime, I met her brother Charlie when I was down there in Miami for Immokalee. You may recall that I said I found him to be a very strange person, very aggressive, verbally. He takes sex tourism trips to South America to have sex with underage prostitutes.
Wait a minute, back up a second.
Yeah, he takes sex tourism trips to South America to have sex with underage prostitutes.
Sex tourism.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, South America.
I'm kind of a sheltered guy.
Mr. Charming. So June, the woman we saw just testified, that's her Mr. Charming. Guy who takes underage prostitution trips to South America. Wow. Amazing.
Well, I was shocked not only that he would tell people he did that, but that he would tell his younger sister. That was strange to me. Very odd. And there's this odd dynamic between them. The whole family is real weird. He talked in the hot tub about punishing a girl by anally violating her in front of Wendy and I, like bragging about the fact that he'd hurt this girl because she had got him in an uncomfortable situation. So he came off like an offender to me. He came off like a kind of sociopathic, like this is strange. He just met me. He's telling me this. It was really, really weird.
Okay,
Yeah, go ahead.
I know. I'm just trying to rein you in a little bit so I can make sure I get it right.
Yeah,
I do recall something about a hot tub.
Yeah.
But I think it may have been something I read from Corey Hale's report.
It might have been. Yeah, I talked to him.
But are you saying you're in the hot tub after the Immokalee retreat?
Exactly. We went from Immokalee to Miami and hung out with their brother.
Okay. So you're in Miami at his place, I guess?
Exactly. It's very well. He's got a really nice house in Miami Beach area.
Miami Beach.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're there and you're in the hot tub.
Yeah.
She's in the hot tub.
Yeah.
And the brother Charlie's in the hot tub.
Yeah.
Okay.
Charlie's talking about punishing girls through anally violating them in front of his sister. It's just.
Is it braggadocious?
Yeah. Like she got him punched out at a wedding. Their Korean girlfriend that brought him as the only white guy to 400 Korean people and just him. Some of the men took offense and he got punched out.
Charlie did.
Yeah. So the way he handled that was to anally violate her and then brag about it the next day. I mean, it was really, really weird.
That had happened the day before y'all got in the hot tub?
No, not the time. That I misspoke there. It was pretty recent. It wasn't that day, but
Okay.
it was last month, the last couple of weeks, something like that.
So he goes to a Korean wedding as the only Anglo.
Yeah, exactly.
And some men took offense because he was a date for one of the Korean girls that was at the wedding.
Exactly.
And the disgust on Charlie Adelson's face while Jeffrey Lacasse was talking, such contempt for him. Like, this guy is such a wimp, such a nothing burger. That was the look on his face while he was testifying. Just absolute hatred coming through his eyes, burning lasers.
And he probably opened his mouth or something. So
He says he got sucker punched, but I don't know.
okay, so he gets, and so his way of getting retribution is the girl that brought him to the wedding is to rape her?
Well, it did not rape. It wasn't rape. It was consensual sex, but he was bragging about the fact that he made it hurt a lot and that kind of stuff.
Oh, okay.
And that was just.
And that was anal penetration.
Yeah.
He's bragging about.
And it was 20 minutes after I met him.
I got you.
So I'm just like, this is not normal. This is strange. Guys will talk to their guy friends. Although I've never said anything like that. I would never want to hurt a woman. It's,
right.
You know, so it's, so it just struck me as very, very odd. Fast forward to May, we have that incident in the coffee shop that we discussed that Officer Hale and you were, I assume that's one of the reasons you guys were interested in talking to me in the first place. But just to remind you, I just walked into All Saints Coffee and there's my girlfriend with another guy. But that was a big deal in our relationship. And,
right, because you see her there and she's with this guy and
yeah.
And you don't know who the guy is. Maybe I got that wrong. You knew that she was seeing a guy?
That's one of the things that concerned me is that she would bring him up from time to time. And there was other signs. I mean, there's, I think, 5 to 10 other men. I was in denial about it in this time period. That's not a crime, obviously. But it was, she's very impulsive, very erratic, doesn't think things through. She will do them and then worry about the consequences later.
That's a sign of sociopathy?
Was remarkably sloppy about cheating on me in terms of, well, that's what was interesting. Up until about
impulsivity, need for high stimulus, and no moral compass. And Charlie has this too, where he dates multiple women at the same time and none of them know about each other. So we just saw that with June. She didn't know about Katie, and Jeff didn't know about, he says, 5 to 10 other men. Is that what he just said? That's what I just heard. That Wendy was dating during the time he was dating her. And he's right. It's not a crime. It just makes you question their sensitivity to other people's feelings.
About early June, she was covering her tracks pretty well, actually. And, after that fight, we had a mild fight about that. And things started to get really, really strange. And this is what I think I had a hard time getting across to Investigator Hale. So we have that fight. She goes to Portland for a weekend. She comes back. It's now June. In June, I was walking around saying to all my friends, I don't know what is going on. Something is going on. We had that.
So listen to the way he describes it. He describes it as a drum beat. I think this is the most interesting description. You should check it out.
Very frank talk about that and decided to stay together. She said, it's one guy. He's gone. He literally moved out of the area, as you probably know. So in June, I was walking around saying to my friends, I don't know what's going on. It's just uncanny to think back on it now. So I don't know what's going on, but something's gonna happen. Like, it feels like there's drum beats. It feels like we're moving towards something. It's really, really strange. I don't know what's going on. One of the strange things that happened was we had a trip to California scheduled to see my parents the week that Danny was killed. And in early June, she rescheduled that trip. And I said, what's the problem with the trip? She says, well, I'm worried we'll get stuck in the airport and we won't be back on Friday. I have to pick up the kids from school. said, but we're coming back Thursday night. It's not winter. We're not going. Land in the winter, I would understand. There's no way we're gonna get. And we can rent a car. We have friends that could babysit. This is strange. I said, fine, cancel the trip.
And that was going to be in early June?
The trip was going to be the week that Danny was killed.
Oh, okay. That was the trip?
So she has to be back in time for the day Danny is murdered. And he says in this, that day meant something to me before I even knew why.
11th to 19th was supposed to be the trip. So we had a trip planned, and she was real strange about the fact that we had to reschedule this trip. It just didn't make sense. And I even said, if you just don't want to go because you don't feel comfortable right now, just tell me, that's cool. She goes, no, I have to pick up the kids from school that day. I just have to. I don't want to do anything that would stop that, And she said, I'll miss the kids at that point. I said, okay. A couple of days later, I say, well, she said, but I want to spend that time with you. I was leaving for Tennessee on Friday. She said, I want to spend that Monday through Thursday with you. I said, great. You want to go to St. Augustine? She loves the beach. She hates Tallahassee. This, again, is just very strange and suspicious to me. When Adelson tells me, what I want to do is a staycation. I want to stay home in Tallahassee. I said, you want to stay in Tallahassee the hottest week of the year? He goes, yeah, we'll go to Tom Brown Park. We'll do this. I said, you hate it here. I'm offering to take you away. Why wouldn't you? It's just really strange at the time. I remember saying to my friends, like, Wendy wants, people laugh. I said, Wendy says she wants to stay in Tallahassee. Like, she leaves town. Sure, every chance she gets, she leaves town. Why would she want to stay? I said, I don't know. I have no idea. I finally managed to convince her to do a trip to St. Augustine, but we had to schedule it so that we were back basically by the time of the shooting. So that was just strange. It was peculiar at the time. When we scheduled that trip to St. Augustine, I was sitting her, she has her calendar open. You have to schedule everything with her. That's just how she was. It was just, at the time, I can remember sitting in her office trying to schedule this, and there's this weirdness about that weekend. We're scheduling other things, no problem. But that weekend, she just was intent on. That day meant something to me before Danny was shot. Like, there's something weird about that week. I don't know what it is, but there's something weird about that week. If we keep going through June, other things I noticed in June that were really crazy.
Let me back up a second so I get this right.
Yeah.
July 11th through 19th, you're supposed to go to California.
Yeah.
Leave on the 11th, come back on the 19th.
I can look it up for you. It might be 12th to 19th, but it was the week that Danny was shot. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when is she saying?
So it was actually July 11th to the 17th for those listening on podcast.
I can't do it. What date? What date are we talking about when she's telling you I can't?
Early June. I can pull up the exact
Early
date.
June.
Early June. Yeah.
So you're supposed to go to California with her, just you two.
We have plane tickets purchased. And she sat me down. I think it was June 5th or 7th. I will find out for you if you would like.
Yeah.
And she just said, I can't do that. And it just didn't make sense. It just didn't make any sense.
So the correct date was June the 4th.
She'd already said that date was that window of.
She said, this is the 1 week I have to go see your parents. And I said,
11th through the 19th.
But that was in May we booked them. So 3 different times she canceled plans with me in the 2 or 3 day period with Danny.
What you're leading to is this is highly suspicious that she needs to be here on the 18th of July.
Yeah, just anecdotally, subjectively, whatever it's worth, it was really weird. It was really strange. I know this woman. I know her really well. And there was something at the time with me saying to my friends, what's going on? It's just really, really strange. It's just really.
She'd never done anything like this before?
No, she had canceled and recanceled, and she did that all the time. Completely disorganized person. But it usually made sense. It usually had a reason. And usually the reason was something about court with Danny, or parents wanted to come down to South Florida. Every other time but this, I understood. This time I was completely puzzled. It didn't make sense. And it was very, very strange.
Another interesting element is the infantilization of Wendy by her parents. Every time she drove down to Miami, they would come up to drive down with her, which I think is so odd as a mother of 2 children, adult mother of 2 children. Very odd.
Okay, so she cancels this trip to California. Did you go anyway?
I did
No,
not.
of course you didn't. You were, okay.
Wish I had.
Yeah. And so what happens to these plane tickets?
Her ticket, I have no idea.
So she bought her own?
Yeah, we got separate plane tickets. As a matter of fact, I don't know that she did buy a plane ticket,
Oh,
but she told me she did.
same airline, same
Think so.
flight?
I can find out if I can send you my reservation, because we had a discussion about getting our seats moved together, so I think she probably bought a ticket actually, but I never saw the ticket.
It wasn't discussed any further?
I can't recall.
Okay, so that's the first thing. In early June, she says, Jeff, I got to be back on that Friday, the 18th.
Exactly.
To pick up the kids. I guess that's going to be the first of her week with the kids, maybe?
Yeah, she gets the kids back after having, because they went to 7-day schedule in the summer.
Right.
And she's, I don't miss the kids. I said, we'll be back. It's not, I said, you don't want to go, just tell me I don't want to go. No, I want to go. I just got to be back for the kids. There was a special.
Okay, why not adjust the flight or adjust the.
Well, she had the kids the previous week. This was her one free week. She's also booked all summer.
Well, the 18th is a Friday.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so, going backwards, the 11th should have been a Thursday, I'm thinking.
I can look it up, but it just wasn't. She was booked week by week throughout the summer.
She doesn't even have any school stuff, right? I mean, I don't know if you're off during that
No,
time.
I'm completely off. She has a lot of obligations to her parents. Her parents want her down in Miami every chance she gets. All through this county, there's parents.
All right,
So three different occasions. This at the time, it's like, oh, what's going on with the 18th of July or the week of the 18th? What is this? I don't understand what this is.
Okay, so the first thing is the California trip, and it's next.
Yes.
Then you want to take her to St. Augustine,
And she wants to stay, and that's just bizarre.
But did you ever make plans to go to St. Augustine?
Yeah, so a week later, again, we sat in front of the calendar, and it was really strange. There was this hesitancy about that weekend. She says, I'll go to St. Augustine, but we have to be back early on Friday.
Early on Friday. What is early?
So every time he mentions that weekend, you can see him rocking back and forth like it's a drumbeat that weekend. Like that's how he thinks of it. It's like we're building towards something, what he didn't know. And when he mentions that weekend, it's almost like he's rocking in time to the music of the beat of this drum forward towards this horrible, macabre thing that they're doing.
On Friday night.
We were going to wake up and come straight back from St. Augustine, so we would have got up at 7, been here by 9 or 10.
Okay.
And by they, I mean the Adelson family, not Jeffrey Lacasse. So the murder is planned. It's like she's got to be back for it. And of course, when Dan Markel was murdered, her ex-husband, Wendy, was at home getting her TV repaired. And Charlie Adelson always made a joke, and she liked to repeat this joke, that Charlie bought her a TV for her divorce because it was cheaper than a hitman.
The kids from school till 4 didn't make sense.
Okay.
So
Interestingly, that's her alibi. And then she shows up at the police station with this owl shirt, like the all-seeing, all-knowing owl. Works at night, mysterious, right?
I said fine, and my thing was I was going to drop her off and then drive up to Atlanta. I was going to drop her off and go. So that was just strange. It just stuck in my head. Like what?
Because your trip to your friend up in Tennessee, what was the date you were supposed to go?
I was supposed to leave at about 10 or 11 a.m. on Friday the 18th.
Okay.
Because I was supposed to the original trip was to go straight to Atlanta, stay the night in Atlanta, then go up to Tennessee the next day. So I was supposed to leave here at 10 or 11 and get there at 4 or 5.
On Friday afternoon.
Friday afternoon. Yeah,
Okay.
that changed. But that was the original.
No, because you left on Thursday.
Yeah, I did.
All right, well, let's jump to that so I can fill in this blank.
Yeah.
Why did you leave on Thursday?
We'd had a huge fight in late June. I discovered some other cheating. I was very upset with her. And she had sent me, had sort of broken up, basically. But she put me on a 7-day hold.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, I remember that.
yeah.
She sent you an email or
Yeah,
something?
exactly. So the night before, I was so upset. I was just like, fuck this, I'm going. I just wait. I said, get out of town. I was upset. But that's something my friends have said to me that I've never said this, but my friends have said, Jeff, sometimes it's hard for me to see this clearly. They can see it more clearly. Jeff, you do realize that if you left Friday at 11 a.m. for Atlanta, what this would have looked like, you would have been in custody. You're really.
Oh.
Now, I'm not saying that, but some of my friends, it was like a clumsy attempt to take attention off her and put it on me. I'm not saying that's true. It sounds a little far-flung to me. It sounds a little clumsy to me. But she knew exactly when I was going to leave. I'm a late riser, and she didn't know I changed my plans, obviously. So I'm glad I changed my plans. I wouldn't blame you guys for being a little more suspicious if you didn't. I mean, if I leave at 11, you just see me driving north 10 minutes after Danny showed up. So that looks suspicious to a lot of people. I know it makes it sound like a criminal mastermind. It may sound crazy to you, but that's what my friends say. So can I go back to the stuff in June?
And his friends were 100% right. 100% right. She wanted to know every detail about that trip. What time he was leaving, which way he was driving, when they were supposedly broken up. And he got so frustrated that he ended up leaving, not telling anyone except the people that he was in Tennessee, that he was meeting, when he was going. He ended up leaving the day before and ruining the Adelson's plan.
Absolutely, I'm sorry.
No, any questions you want to ask? I know I talk fast, and
Just a little faster than I'm used to.
My dad's from Boston, so I'm an adopted Southerner, but I haven't slowed down yet. So, in June, these are just my impressions. But there was 5 or 6 times in June I'm playing with the kids. We had a good family life, terrible romantic relationship because she was cheating me all the time. But I'm home with the kids with her, nice family life.
You're at her house out on
every time, yeah.
Cameron.
Exactly, off Aqua Ridgewood. Nice house. So 4 or 5 times in late June, I'm playing with the kids, reading them stories. I was very close to Ben in particular, spent a lot of time with those children. And I look out of the corner of my eye, and Wendy would be in the kitchen crying for no reason whatsoever. And at the time, what it looked like to me is she was like taking it all in, and she looked like she was grieving something. And I would say, "What's wrong?" And she'd say, "Nothing's wrong," or make up some bullshit story. She lied so much, it was hard to know. But in retrospect, it makes me worry a lot because it looked like she was wrestling with something. It wasn't suspicious, it was just weird. But in retrospect, it's like, wow, let's assume she knew something was going to happen. That's how a person might react, She made a choice, but.
That's late June.
That's late June. So that happened enough times that I talked to my friends about it. What she was talking about in June, relocation to Miami, how terrible it was to be stuck in Tallahassee, crying like I got stuck here, I didn't choose this, I can't stand it.
And of course, Wendy testifies that this is all untrue. Jeffrey Lacasse is making it up. She loved Tallahassee. She had no problems living there. Really hard to believe. Terrible, terrible witness. I wouldn't believe her as a juror, but I'm not so sure that Charlie Adelson, the way it is now, the way the trial is going, if they're not going to get a hung jury or, horrors, acquitted. I hope that doesn't happen. But that's what money will buy you, a really strong defense. A defense lawyer who's willing to say anything, including accusing this guy of being a disgruntled ex-boyfriend seeking revenge on the Adelson family.
And she talked about the fact that the only way she could ever relocate is if something happened to Danny.
Now, did she actually say that?
Yeah, she did. Yeah.
This is the first time you've mentioned that.
I don't think so. I think I did mention that to Investigator Hale.
Okay.
I think I did. Well, no, it wasn't. I had 3 interviews with Investigator Hale.
Okay.
The next 2 was me trying to tell him things like this. I don't think he was hearing me.
Okay.
So, no, she didn't say I killed Danny. She didn't say that word for word. But it was, because I was saying, hey, we're about to like get serious here. Are you going to be here? Because she hated so much. I need to know what's going to happen. And she's like, well, the only way that, let me give you the context. The only way I could leave is if something happened to Danny. But if that did happen, that would be a tough decision. I would probably need to go back to Miami to be with my parents. So that scenario came from her. But it was a response to a question from me. So, I mean, I guess I need to be fair about that one.
Sure.
But it was, and it's true, right? I mean, it was, I asked if Danny might move with her. She said she would not be willing to do that. But she was talking about that.
She would not be willing to do that?
No, she didn't. Well, Danny had job offers from all over the country constantly, and she didn't want to live in Houston or St. Louis or things like that. I mean, she was miserable here. She was here just because she came with Danny. She didn't like her job. She didn't like the area. She didn't like split custody. I don't know that people knew how upset she was. I mentioned to you before you came into the room when I said this, but this is the time period. I don't know the exact day. I'm so distracted by relationship stuff, I can't quite remember it. But she told me that Charlie had looked into having Danny killed in the summer of 2013. She meant it dead serious. I wish to God I'd follow up on that at the time, trying to figure out us. And I thought, well, Charlie's crazy. I can imagine that, but certainly he's not crazy enough to do that. So I didn't worry about it.
That's your interpretation.
It's not my.
No, let's back up.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let's get into the context of your conversation with her where that comes up about
Please.
Charlotte.
Please.
So
She just, she's talking about Danny. She is completely.
where are we at?
We're at her house in the living room in late June.
Late June of 2013.
Yeah, 2014. Yeah,
I'm sorry, 2014.
Yeah, late June. And you know what? This might have even been. This is sometime between June 20th and the Monday before Danny was shot.
Okay.
And I want to say it was right before, but I don't trust my memory on that, the date. And she's talking about Danny because it's all she ever talked about. Danny wasn't a human being. He was Satan.
He was what?
He was Satan.
Satan,
Yeah.
okay.
And what was real strange about this was that in January, February, March, they had a lot of court stuff. And I could see why she'd be so pissed off at Danny. Danny had calmed down. He liked his new girlfriend. The judge had read him the riot act in court when they went to court the one time and told the other attorney, you need to calm your client down and stop having your client write his own legal briefs. I'm sick of reading this crap. You know, Danny was going to get his butt handed to him by the court, and Wendy was going to have to concede a couple things, but she was going to win, everybody thought. And he had calmed down. He really had. So I was trying to say, maybe we could talk about Danny a little less. Danny's chill. Danny's happy with Amy. This is good. This is good for us, you know. I was starting to see Danny a little more realistically at that point. So she's in the middle of these conversations. She's just ranting and raving about Danny. Very angry with Danny. She's very sensitive, and the worst thing you could do for Wendy is point out that she's not perfect. And that's what Danny represented to her is, he said, you're a liar, you know, things like that. Anyway, she just comes out of the blue and I said, well, I just wish something, I can't remember exactly what I said, but I was like, you know, this isn't going to ever be fixed in the way you want it. This is, you're linked to this man for your life. You know, there's no fix for this, but you have to fix what you think and feel. And she said, well, you know, Charlie did look into having him killed last summer. He said it would cost about $15,000.
$15,000?
That's right. Seems cheap to me, but you would know better than I.
So he revised this in his testimony and says, maybe I heard $50,000. It sounds an awful like 15. And Luis Rivera testified that he got 37. And so around that amount, if you double it, a little bit more than 50, maybe with inflation, a year inflation, I don't know, kind of close, awfully eerily close to what was spent.
And
It's, I want to make sure I understand
yeah,
this completely.
please.
So June, what was the date?
Between June 20th and March 14th, let's say. I think it's probably,
to,
I think it's closer to July, between June 20th and July 14th. I think it's closer to July 14th.
okay. She says, you know, Charlie
Charlie did actually look into having him killed last summer.
last summer.
And he was told it would cost $15,000. And one of Charlie's
This is just paraphrased, but I want to make sure I understand.
Yeah.
Charlie did look into having
Danny killed last summer. It would cost about $15,000. And that's not exactly word for word, but that's pretty close to what she said. Wish to God I had followed up. But how do you respond to that? What do you say?
what did you say?
I changed the subject to us. I was interested in working our relationship out.
She ever bring that up again?
No, never again. But what worries me is that the speech pattern, I'm not trying to play FBI profiler here, but
It's kind of like, I told you half a truth instead of half a lie.
that's how she lies. That's exactly, I'm sure you got that on anyway. So it doesn't have the impulse control just to say nothing in high stress situations, but gives you this half-ass version.
Right. Doesn't have the impulse and control to say nothing in high stress situations. What other antisocial personality does that sound like?
Yeah. So I thought about that a lot.
But you do remember the amount is 15,000?
I do remember that.
No further than that, nothing else?
There's nothing else. I wish I followed up. I beat myself up about this.
No, you didn't.
What am I gonna do? Call you guys? Say my girlfriend said something crazy? I don't know.
No.
The thing that worried me about Charlie is he has a very close friend and goes on these trips with him, and he's ex-special forces and he's known for being kind of deranged. And it looked like it was done by somebody who knew what they were doing. So I told you guys that already.
What's his name, though? I never got a name.
I don't know. I assumed you guys investigated it. I don't know. He's a tatted up, known affectionately as a deranged guy. Guy just didn't come back the same way some of these guys do, unfortunately.
But he's a close friend of Charlie's?
It's on his Facebook page. That's what I told investigator Hale.
Okay.
When I heard the crime occurred, about 12 hours, I was shocked. And then as I'm driving up I-75, in my head, I was like, holy shit, Charlie did it. And he got that guy. I can't remember his name.
You're saying this guy is on Charlie's Facebook page, or was?
Was. I don't know if he is.
Okay.
These are really smart people. I wouldn't be Facebook friends with them anymore if any of this is true. Other thing that happened in June, our relationship isn't doing well. All of a sudden, from nowhere, like a 5-year-old kid will try to manipulate you in a very transparent way, and it's like obvious what they're doing. She started doing that kind of stuff. I got the sense we weren't going to make it. It was obvious to me, and I never going to trust her again. All of a sudden, she throws me the world. And if I was at the time, I said to my friends, I've been very careful not to develop like a hindsight bias. I've checked back in with my friends. What did I say? They said, you said in June, it felt like Wendy was stringing you along for some reason. And you couldn't figure out why she just break up with you. She's like, this ain't going to work, So all of a sudden.
Because she would have to string him along so she could give him the 7-day cool down, think about it, period. So he could freak out and theoretically be the fall guy for the murder of Dan Markel. And I so wonder if the hitman were asking for his car. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it's very similar color to the Prius, light blue, his car, and similar shape. So I wonder if they just settled on a Prius. It was the closest they could come to his car. But he was, without a doubt, in my mind, going to be the fall guy for this. It was meticulously planned. I think I'm going to end it here. But if you watch the rest of this, he puts it together. He says Charlie Adelson would have gotten some hitman if he didn't use his special forces friend. Let's see it. Let's see if it's in the next 2 minutes, if we can get to it. So he really does put it all together, but it may come like 20 minutes if that's where he's leading to. But I think he actually goes more on to the relationship and her stringing him on. Let's just see. 2 more minutes, and then I'm going to close down the stream.
She's telling me I should move in.
Move in with her.
Yeah, she's talking about moving in. And I wanted a family so bad. She knew that. She manipulated me with the kids constantly. She said the kids should start calling you daddy. I'm going to talk to my mom and dad, and I'm not Jewish. That was all I wanted. I'm going to get approved by the parents. I'm going to give you the passwords. I'm going to give to all my computer accounts. She started acting like this was going to be a permanent thing.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. I can give you a second.
I have to respond to
I
this right
understand.
now.
I understand. Weeks as soon as we got back, we drive back to Tallahassee. Then she drives down to Miami with her mom.
Oh.
So that was because her mom has to come up to take with her because she's not allowed to go herself. I knew it was the worst time in the world to have a fight. I just probably lost my mind on her. Right? So only reason this is relevant to the investigation is it precedes this crime by a couple of weeks. I did not touch her. I did not call her names, but I lost my shit on her. I told her exactly how upset I was. I chewed her ass. She decompensated in a way that I've never seen an adult do before. She ended up in the fetal position, sobbing like a 3-year-old. So I was really upset, as you can imagine. I mean, and put me with the kids on Mother's Day, and the next day, I was really upset. So anyway, I was pretty angry with her. And you may have seen the email. She actually was manipulative enough. They ended up apologizing for that.
Was this on her Gmail account?
Yes. There's a lot of.
Other investigators have looked at those.
Gotcha.
And so I'd have to figure out which one.
Yeah. And I'm just saying, if you see it, it's a little.
I just didn't know if it was her Gmail account or her work account or a different account.
Yeah.
If I want to go back and look at it, I'm going to look at the Gmail.
Yeah, it's Gmail. It's on Gmail.
Did she give a reason?
It's deeply important to her she be perceived a certain way.
No, did she give a reason why she was having multiple sex partners?
Not a good one, no. I mean, she said she didn't actually. She said she was very upset by my behavior in Immokalee when we had two that you or I would probably consider.
Okay, I think we're going to leave it there. Have a great night, everybody. I'll see you very, very soon.